Hello, everybody. I'm Zenith Rule, and welcome back to the Disney debate, where Kat Mac and I talk about Disney products and Disney in general. So how's it going, Kat?
I feel like slapping someone.
No, this
Yeah,
is not the answer.
yes it is. I'm gonna slap you, I'm gonna slap my roommates, I'm gonna slap everyone. Because I both love and hate them. But mostly I hate this film that we're about to review.
The two films that we're going to be talking about today,
Well, one of them I hate anyway. But
I hate them both. They're both weird.
mm, mm, second one not so much. First one, ugh. So
Yeah, we have a double feature for you guys today. The first one is Fun and Fancy Free, which is composed of two cartoons that really suck and are offensive. And we're going to get into that in a bit. The second one is Melody Time, which actually works a bit better than a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, but I don't think it's all that good.
yeah, it's a lot better than Make My Music, but not by very much. But there are some good parts of it to note, but for the most part, it's definitely no Fantasia. Neither of these films come even close to Fantasia.
Mm-hmm. So, starting with Fun and Fancy Free, it's basically a compilation of two longer cartoons. The first one is Bongo, and the second one is Mickey and the Beanstalk, which is basically a retelling of, the tale of the giant and the beanstalk. It's basic children's stories, and it's the basic formula that Disney has been following for a while. Is basing a film on children's stories, but where it fails here is that it takes two very short stories, it pads them out, and there are some really offensive stereotypes in these films. Also, in Fun and Fancy Free, the two cartoons are really not connected to each other, and the way they try to connect them in the film is very, very weird.
Yeah, definitely. 'Cause we actually started off because they try to do this in a sort of narrative fashion by having preludes or intermissions in between the cartoons. And the first one starts off with, of all characters, Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, it actually starts off. We have Jiminy Cricket, we see Cleo the fish, and Figaro.
Or at least what we think is Figaro. It could be his much more violent cousin, for all we know.
And it just like, I scratch my head and I'm just like, wait, did I put in the right movie?
Yeah, is this Pinocchio 2, Electric Boogaloo?
And so it starts off, and Jiminy Cricket's like just goofing around for 5 minutes, and I'm just like, cartoon, yeah, where are you? And he stumbles upon some records, and he plays it, and it's like, oh, it's the story of Bongo on a record for some reason, and so the voiceover starts and the cartoon begins, and it's such an awkward transition. I'm just like, wouldn't it make much more sense for Jiminy Cricket to just tell us the story?
Yeah, and actually, in a version of it that I saw, he does narrate the story. So when I actually saw this in the video pack, they actually had a woman. I was trying to think what her name is. Sinclair Lewis, actually. No, Dinah Shore, uh, narrating the cartoon. I have no idea who she is. I mean, and she's probably a singer or something, but I didn't see how she was connected with this, and I didn't know why they, basically made Jiminy Cricket's part obsolete and not having him tell the story.
And he's barely in it. Like, Cliff Edwards gets no lines, and ultimately it feels out of place. I mean, why would you have a record like this telling a story of all things
Yeah,
at that point in time? And secondly, it breaks the fourth wall a lot with the narrator talking to the bear, and that would only make sense if like someone is narrating the story like Jiminy Cricket, who knows everything that's going to happen. But this is on a record. So you would have to record this on a record, and the record would have to be made in the future. My mind hurts.
It's magic. You don't have to explain
it. One more day.
But yeah, it made no sense. And actually, from what I see, they did re-release it later with Jiminy Cricket telling the story. I just wish that they had actually cut out the part with the record and just had Jiminy telling a story, because then it makes no sense. I mean, is that supposed to be for the music, for the narration, for the characters? Yeah, it was confusing.
And really, the only part that Jiminy Cricket actually has in this film is the song that he sings, where it's just like he's singing "I'm a happy-go-lucky fellow," which doesn't add to the film at all. It's just padding.
It is. It's a very generic song. Nothing interesting happens. You just see Jiminy Cricket's smiley, happy face.
And it's not even good animation. Like, this is actually subpar. It's worse than Pinocchio. Like, I look at it and I'm just like, didn't they used to actually, like, look at the characters and, make sure that things behaved like their counterparts? It's not the same. It's subpar.
Yeah, the animation definitely, it's not as good, but it wasn't horrible though. You could still tell it was the characters. They weren't, completely.
I mean, it was better than like Make Mine Music and stuff like that, where it was just like supposed to be cartoons. You could tell a little bit of effort was put into it, but when you compare it to Pinocchio, which was only the second film that Disney released at the time, it makes me sad to think, this is a little bit after the war. This film came out in 1947.
Yeah, but they could have been working on it during the war, and again, lack of animators and talent. So I really don't think they could have, made up for all of that within the 2 years that the war was over. Because that's a little bit too much to be asking from people just returning home from war, if they returned home at all.
But what they got was something weird. So yeah, let's talk about Bongo, because, the beginning really nothing happens. It's mostly padding. But we go into the segment called Bongo, and it starts off with a bear at a circus, and immediately my thoughts go to Dumbo. Because, a lot of this film, like, references past Disney continuity. And, I see the circus, and it's showcasing this bear as this amazing act. He can do pretty much anything. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, where are the elephants? Why aren't they setting up the tents? Why aren't they packing it up? And it's just like, Disney, you established this. Did elephants set up tents in the circus? But no, apparently when the circus opens up and closes, it just gets sucked back into the train, like it's like a magical void. It's so weird. I'm just like, this could have been elephants and so much easy.
Yeah. Actually, you want to hear something interesting? Bongo was actually supposed to be a character in the what could have been Dumbo's sequel.
Oh God.
Yeah, believe it or not, what they actually did rather early on consider, making a Dumbo sequel, and Bongo was going to be one of the circus bears that joined, and he was going to be a lot more mischievous, and troublemaking. But of course, that whole thing got dropped.
Well, yeah. So it opens up, and we see this amazing bear, and apparently he can do anything. And this is what happens. Like, it showcases everything that the bear can do. And I'm just like, I keep having Neutro flashbacks. I'm like, Bongo, could do this. And Bongo, can walk on the tightrope. And he can do anything. He's an amazing bear extraordinaire. But in the wrong hands...
and walk on water.
In the wrong hands, he can destroy the world and defeat 20 dinosaurs. And so yeah, it's just, it opens up and it shows, like, all the things that he can do. And so he's this amazing super bear. Super babies, and he is upset with his life at the circus. He feels like he feels like he's supposed to be pampered, but unfortunately he's just put in a cage at the zoo. And I'm just like, okay, you do amazing death-defying stunts, but you're not you're not like a rich super bear, you know.
That is
I
actually kind of baffling when you think about it, that a circus whose main attraction is this bear that can do all these, amazing feats of strength and agility and is probably like their sole, cash cow, they end up treating him like crap, like any common animal. It really
I
doesn't make sense.
unless I think it's mostly the stunts that Bongo can do. I think that's all in his mind. That's the only way he's able to do all this crazy stuff that he's doing in the film.
I guess, but they do show him performing those big feats of strength in front of crowds, so obviously he does have some talent.
I don't know. Physics does not take place in this film. Logic does not take place in this film.
There is logic in what you say.
So yeah, he's unhappy with the circus. He wants to live life free. So he rattles the doors on the cage on the train as it's moving, and the padlock just comes right off.
Yeah, that somehow, apparently him just rattling the cage just managed to make what should be a deadbolt just pop open. Convenience!
Plot consistency, what's that? But yeah, so he magically gets out of his cage because the plot convenience fairy was in the neighborhood at the time, and he's free in the woods, and so he's just like, hey, everything's awesome, and he's loving the woods, and then he tries to go to sleep, and apparently he has trouble sleeping because the woods are too noisy at night.
Yeah, even though they really shouldn't be, since most of the noise is made by bugs, just very exaggerated.
Yeah, and then like he tries sleeping in various different places, and
apparently Thor hates him because he keeps hurling lightning bolts at him during a thunderstorm.
it starts raining, and it's just like he starts wanting to go back to the circus or something. And, it reminds me a lot of that Penguin animated short from, what was it, from the Three Caballeros?
Yeah, that one with Pablo.
Yeah, and I keep thinking, oh, the bear's going to want to go back now.
Yeah, but again, plot convenience, they throw a woman into the mix. So obviously everything is awesome again.
Yeah, so after, like, Thor hurls, like, hundreds of lightning bolts at him, and he gets, like, he falls in a river, and he goes through a waterfall, he sees a woman. And so he starts, pining for this woman. And we have yet another Disney acid trip sequence. The acid trip sequences are over 9,000 by this point.
Oh, too true, too true. I think this is like a common thing for characters whenever they fall in love or lust. Suddenly they're transported into a magical land full of clouds and hearts and rainbows and pretty things, to show that they're in love. And, reality no longer exists.
So yeah, we have this whole sequence where they're like falling in love and they're together and, crazy messed up things happen. It's not quite as ridiculous as the acid trip in the Three Caballeros, but it's up there.
Yeah, and actually, it reminds me a lot of a later Disney movie, the sequel to Lion King 2, when the two main characters are taken by Rafiki into this land called Upende, and it's pretty much as bright and colorful, and there's like a billion hearts and saying, "Oh, you two are in love. Let's show how in love you are." I'm pretty sure this was like a precursor to that. It seems like that now that I look at it.
It's a weird sequence. It's somewhat enjoyable because the animators have fun, but this all feels like padding because let's review for a second here. We start off with a bear.
Mm-hmm.
He's unhappy with where he is, so he escapes. Okay. That's a good plot point. Then we are in the woods. We see him frolic around for a few minutes. Then he tries to sleep, and it rains, and he gets beat up for a few minutes because of the atmosphere. And then he sees a girl, and then he has this acid trip sequence. It just all feels like padding. We go from one random plot point to the other, and it's very plot convenient. It's very random agenda in terms of what is happening in this cartoon.
Yeah, not to mention the music numbers, which, in my opinion, aren't really that good.
They're not memorable, except for one we're going to talk about in a bit that really makes me scratch my head.
Yeah.
So we have this bear, he falls in love, and after the acid trip sequence, another random plot occurrence, all the animals that are in the forest randomly appear because, up until this point we hadn't seen any other animals in the forest, but a whole bunch of bears come out of nowhere, and then this big, mean, like, gorilla of a bear just comes up and just starts attacking this guy for no reason.
Hey, two male bears going at it. Pretty much, male, territory and everything.
And so the girl's just like, she tries to tell him, oh, this is my bear, don't talk to him. And it does nothing. And so she slaps Bongo.
Who is very confused and...
Just like the audience is, I'm sure, because random bear slapping is not on the agenda.
Yeah, so he takes it as an insult, thinking, oh, she must hate me now if she's, slapping me like she is.
And then she accidentally slaps the big bear. And after all that, we find out, apparently, in Disney continuity, bears slap each other to show affection.
Yes.
What the hell?
Yes, apparently bears... apparently bears are more into S&M than people are.
And then we have this song... Well, the Bongo is walking away dejected because he lost his girlfriend, apparently, and he doesn't understand why at this point. We have this song, it's a southern hoedown, if you will, and it's like, it goes like a bear slap each other when they're in love. Mm-hmm. So, it's really weird. It's surreal.
Yeah, you just see all these bears, just having a good old slap orgy. It's pretty funny to watch.
And it's like, so remember, when you see a bear, they slap each other for love.
Yeah, remember?
I hate this film.
Yeah, remember?
I hate it.
It's like, hey kids, if you have a crush on someone, slap the shit out of them. That'll show them you care.
I have no words. I'm almost wanting to say this is worse than The Reluctant Dragon. It is almost that bad, guys.
Yeah, you see what I meant by I wanted to slap people? Because I love everyone.
I want to slap this movie. Send it to Disney hell. But yeah, so after this hoedown of bear slapping, Bongo gets in and said, oh yeah, bear slaps mean love. Okay, so he goes back and he uses his Bongo bear super tricks that he could have used beforehand to defeat the grizzly bear, but he didn't. And he kind of really slaps the crap out of him with his unicycle. And at that point, I would think they would make a joke that he slapped the male bear and the male bear would fall in love with him.
Oh my god, that would have been hilarious.
But no, he just beats the crap out of the big bear, and he slaps the girl, and they have a slap fight, and it ends with, remember kids, bears slap each other, they tell their love with a slap.
And everyone lives happily ever after.
And I'm just like, what did I just watch? What in the hell did I just see?
Yeah, you saw what bears do in their naughty time. Ew.
So, guys, this is not as bad as The Reluctant Dragon, but it is very, Very close.
Mm. Yeah, and then, once that is done, we go back to Jiminy Cricket.
And he goes to another random plot point. You see where this is going here? This entire film is made of random plot points.
Yeah,
It's like a Family Guy machine.
yeah, yeah. In this case, in order to move the so-called plot along, he sees a birthday invitation to one Luana Patton, who some of you may remember who played Ginny in Song of the South.
And yeah,
She's having her birthday party at a
this
person's house.
this
At,
older gentleman's house,
yeah, a
and
grown man with
he
puppets.
has two ventriloquist dummies there. And now here is the weird part. The bear slapping wasn't the weird part. This is the weird part of the film. So we have this guy, and he's clearly manipulating one of his ventriloquist dummies. That's fine, I can understand that. But there's another sitting on the couch, and it's moving independently of him.
Yeah.
What sorcery is this?
He's a wizard. Yeah, apparently he has these two dummies which are completely, alive on their own, except that they apparently still need him to talk for them, and it's quite obvious when he does talk to them, because
Very obvious.
you always see his lips move, no matter what, even if he's across the room, and it's creepy. Like, you see this grown man who's wearing a hat that looks like an overly large coin purse on his head.
Pretty much.
And he has these two talking dummies, and they're the only guests at this little girl's party.
You know, this film is quite the argument for Satan's existence.
Yeah, and
so the two dummies are stereotypes. One's a really dumb, like, redneck, well, not really redneck, but just a really, really dumb person stereotype. It's like, oh, no.
He's supposed to be a retard, I believe, because, like, he talks like this,
And it's very offensive. At this point in the movie, I'm just like, really?
Yeah, and he's, like, also, like, a real softy, too, because, like, whenever they get to parts where it seems like someone's gonna get hurt or killed, he's like, nope, I'm not listening. It's too upsetting. I can't tell what's real.
And the other one's pretty much a British stereotype.
Yeah, he's a British bastard.
And so, what this is basically, they start telling the story of Mickey and the Beanstalk. But they're not content to just tell the story. This is MST3K version of Mickey and the Beanstalk. But not good.
Yeah, because it starts off decent enough, because you have the guy, Edgar Bergen, being the narrator, and he does a good enough job telling the story. But then you have the little girl, the two puppets ad-libbing over everything, and it's really distracting, and it takes you out of the story.
And in funny hands, this could have been okay. No, this is not funny. There's only one joke that I laughed at, and it was making fun of the Giants, which is something we're going to get to in a second.
Yeah, and it also annoyed me how they would leave the cartoon at certain points and go back to the live action just to, discuss what was going on, like, we hadn't already watched what was going on.
It's weird. That's the only way I can really describe the scene of puppets with Jiminy Cricket in the background and a story of Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, and actually, again, I saw a re-release of this later on, and instead of the guy and the others voice narrating it, it's actually the guy who does the voice for Ludwig von Drake. And he does a so much better job, because he actually narrates the story. I mean,
And that would make so much more sense.
yeah, there's no cutaways, nothing like that. It's just straight narration. And that's what I believe this should have been.
And I mean, the actual story of Mickey and the Beanstalk starts off all right. We have Mickey, Donald, and Goofy living on this farm area, and the land is poor. They have nothing to eat. They have like wafer thin slices of bread that they are allowed to eat with like half a bean.
Mhm. And it's gotten so bad to the point where Donald just friggin' cracks, and it leads to like one of the scariest scenes ever to be shown with Donald Duck.
Now, Donald is a character that you like seeing get angry.
Yes, he.
This is him getting incredibly crazed. His eyes turn red and swirly, insane. His hair is all matted and tangled and on end, and he starts trying to kill a cow and the rest of them cannibalistically.
Yeah, that part scared the shit out of me, because at first you see that, oh, he's just going insane because, again, he has no real food to eat, he's starving and everything, but then you see his eyes glance over to the nearby axe, and then he looks at Mickey and think, holy shit, he's gonna axe murder Mickey. But no, instead he goes to the cow, and he looks like the friggin' devil. And it is terrifying.
And then Mickey goes along with the tale. He goes and trades the cow for some beans instead of getting food. And the other two, I thought Donald was going to go berserk at this point because, he has nothing to eat now. They toss away the beans, and it grows into a beanstalk. Basic telling of the tale, they go up, and they see the giant's world. This isn't so bad. It's a really nice telling, but it's ruined by, the narration in the background.
Yeah.
With the two weird puppets. But it's nothing too bad until you see the giants.
Oh man, this giant.
Okay. In The Reluctant Dragon, we had a very horrible gay stereotype. This is a retarded stereotype. This is the giant is supposed to be the world's most mentally handicapped person.
Yeah, he's still pretty terrifying in that, you never want to get someone who's really big and really dumb angry because he's not going to be able to control himself. But he's just over the top in the goofiness and the childishness and general stupidness.
It's incredibly offensive on multiple levels, and apparently he has the power to transform himself into anything.
Yeah, I didn't understand that, because that kind of comes from the tale of Puss in Boots, where he tricks the ogre who can shapeshift into becoming a mouse so he can eat him. And in this case,
It doesn't fit with the legend.
Yeah, because the giant, as far as I know in all the versions that I've seen and read, didn't have powers. He was just a giant, and really, what more do you need? A guy who's as tall as a skyscraper and can crush you with his pinky, should be hazardous enough. And it's not like he really uses his transformation power anyway. It's more to show off than to actually, help him, go after them.
And like he doesn't use them at all unless when they try to trick him, he does, but he doesn't fall for it. And
that's more because of his stupidity and desire to become a pink bunny.
Yeah, that was weird. This is basically Weird the movie.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta say, at first though, I really liked the story of Mickey and the Beanstalk, because in the regular story of Jack and the Beanstalk, Jack starts off as a poor boy who finds this magical land, and he finds a way to get riches to support himself and his mother. Okay, that's admirable enough. Giant's not going to miss a few gold pieces, and it could feed his family for a good long time. But the problem is he keeps going back and getting more extravagant things that he knows the giant will obviously notice when he takes. In this case, you have Mickey, Donald, and Goofy being poor, but they just go in just to get some food. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing with the magic harp, well, the reason that their home became the way it was because the magic harp, which kept the valley that they live in alive, was kidnapped by the giant. So now their goal goes from, getting food to rescuing the harp, and thus, bringing life back into their home. That's it.
And it was that actual rendition of the story would have been good if it wasn't for the giant being this offensive stereotype, and for the narration in the background by MST3K wannabes.
Yeah, the giant does kind of ruin it with just because the thing is, there are times where he really does seem threatening and scary, but then he just gets that goofy smile on his face, and then it's just hard to take him seriously.
So, yeah, that's pretty much the story. I mean, they get the harp back, they escape the giant.
But then it ends on a weird note. They chop down the beanstalk, the giant falls off, hits the ground, and that's the end.
But before the story can finish, the dummy the ventriloquist dummy that's really, really dumb, he's like, nope, that's too scary, that didn't happen, oh, that poor giant. And you know what happens next? The giant from the story pulls up the roof of the house, and he's like, have you seen Mickey? Or he said, have you seen little people around here? And the guy telling the story faints. And I'm just like, this is really, really surreal.
Yeah, I mean, what was the point of him showing up to show the kids, hey, guys, the giant didn't really die. He's still here. He's alive. And it's like, no. No, he dies in the story. Everyone knows that the giant dies in the story. Don't try to sugarcoat this for the kids, just because you think they can't handle it.
If you're going to do that, just do that in the original story and don't have him just... It was just weird.
I mean, for God's sakes, they had Bambi's mom be shot, and yet they couldn't show, the giant dying off screen.
And in fact, actually in Make My Music, we had another death that was actually on screen, which is the whale.
Yeah, the whale got friggin' harpooned, and you see him thrashing about in the water as he's dying.
Disney death count 5.
So that it brings up the point. Okay, you show Bambi's mom getting shot off screen. You show a whale get harpooned and thrashing about in the water as it slowly dies. So why did you feel it necessary to bring the giant, who's obviously a villain, back to life?
Because they wanted to completely ruin both of these stories.
Yep, seems that way.
Honestly, this film is horrible. It's completely disjointed. Bongo is just incredibly weird, with bears slapping each other. I'm just like, I'm shaking my head. It makes me want to kick chickens.
You and your chickens.
And then we have this weird ventriloquist dummy thing segueing into Mickey and the Beanstalk. They're narrating it for us, but they keep making jokes and they're not funny. And the giant is this weird stereotype and offensive. This is almost as bad as The Reluctant Dragon.
Yeah, it's a jumble mishmash of stuff. I mean, the only highlight for me really was seeing Mickey on screen again with Donald and Goofy. I thought that was pretty cool, and it could have been a good story on its own, in my opinion, had they,
had they told it in the correct format.
Exactly. It could have been something great. And I know there are some people who do, when they were first exposed to Jack and the Beanstalk, this is one of the first cartoons that they saw. But I just think that they could have made it so much better instead of just, lumping it in with the rest of this mishmash of stuff. Because seriously, like, none of it goes together. You have Jiminy Cricket, who shows up for no reason other than to introduce the story of Bongo, then not tell it, then go to a party, and then have no input as to what's going on. Then you have this guy, this pedophile with these weird-ass puppets entertaining this little girl who really should be calling her parents.
I need an adult.
Yeah.
I am an adult.
Yeah, then to him telling her a story about some retard giant who somehow is able to manifest himself into the real world at the end and just walk away. Nothing makes sense. Nothing meshes together. It's...
Everything you know is wrong. But seriously, this is really bad. I don't recommend watching this. No, don't watch this.
I mean, Mickey and the Beanstalk is worth a watch if just to see, you know, the trio together on screen for one of their adventures. And plus,
but there are plenty of better versions of the story you can watch with Mickey and the Beanstalk.
True, there is. Definitely look for it as its own cartoon. And actually, one interesting to note, this is the last time that Mickey was voiced by Walt Disney himself.
That's another reason to watch it. That is actually a pretty good thing. He does a great job with voicing Mickey, and Mickey's the soul-saving grace in this whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah, because he actually does stuff, which is cool. You see him messing around with the giant, you know. You see him using his cunning in order to get out of situations and everything and be the hero. So I thought that's pretty cool. It's just a shame that all of it is buried beneath, you know, this mishmash of confusion.
So that was the first film for this double feature, and we did not get off to a good start.
Yeah.
We basically have Reluctant Dragon 2.0. And that was fun and fancy-free. Next we have Melody Time, and that's better, but I don't think it's superb by any stretch of the imagination. It's better than Make Mine Music, but not by much.
Yeah, there are a lot more cartoons in this that I like a lot better than Make My Music. I think only like 2 in this, and this one I think I like 4. But again, you know, it's no Fantasia, and
it's not even close.
Yeah, and even though it sort of has the common theme, you know, with all the pieces having music set to it, it's kind of underwhelming.
Basically, Melody Time is another one of the Disney package films, which, you know, we've talked about Fantasia, Saludos Amigos, The Three Caballeros, Make My Music, and that last film we talked about. Those are all packaged films in which Disney said, okay, let's take a bunch of different segments and put them together to create a feature-length film for cost-cutting measures. Some of them have worked. Fantasia and Three Caballeros have worked. Saludos Amigos was okay. Make My Music was somewhat bad. And Fun and Fancy Free, you can go suck it. But now we have this. And it has 7 different segments. And some of them are pretty good, actually. It starts off with this cartoon called Once Upon a Winter Time. And it's basically, it's this slow musical number. It starts off in the winter, and this couple, you know, ice skating around and frolicking in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this one that much. You know, it's kind of there.
Right. I actually liked it. I mean, I thought it was artistically, you know, drawn well, except for maybe some of the features on the human people. Like, the guy has one of those cartoonish red noses, while the female has no nose at all.
The horses are like demon giraffes.
Yeah, they're like this weird hybrid between horses and giraffes. I guess we'll call them giraffes. And Yeah, it's a simple tale of, this couple going on a date, during the winter time to go ice skating and everything. And during the course of it, the guy ends up getting snow all over the girl's outfit because for some reason she decided to wear a nice, pretty formal dress while ice skating. And she gets pissed off and walks away from him.
But at the same time, while she's walking away, she looks at him and she has like a flirty face on.
Yeah, she's like, come and get me. Win my affections over.
Women, your wicked wiles.
Yes.
Grumpy was right.
Yes, we are wicked indeed.
But I mean, for the most part, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. A couple, they're in love, and there's a song playing in the background. I don't think the song is that good, but it's not bad. And for the most part, I'd say this segment is okay. It's pretty short.
Yeah, it is. And there is a bit of an intense scene where she walks over thin ice and it breaks off and for some reason heads toward a waterfall even though they were ice skating on a pond previously.
Yeah, the pond turns into a river. Like, this is continuity? What? Great continuity.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a, intense scene with that. But then it's quickly over, and they're back to being lovey-dovey.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the extent to the cartoon. I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but it doesn't have that much presence for me.
Yeah, it's a simple winter cartoon, you know.
It would work on its own as like a little bit of short, but I don't think it was the best way to start up the film.
Nah, it wasn't. I mean, it was somewhat nice to look at, but not that much of an impression, unfortunately.
The next one is actually pretty cool. It's Bumble Boogie, and it's a swing jazz version of Flight of the Bumblebee, which, I like the original version, but this is a nice jazz version. And it has a bumblebee. It reminds me of that segment for Make Mine Music that I really liked with anthropomorphic instruments.
Yeah, this one's pretty crazy. They have imagine if you took a bumblebee, put him in a room full of instruments, gave him acid, and then just watched him freak the fuck out.
Seriously, Disney is on acid in every single film.
Yeah, this piece was actually another one that was supposed to be in Fantasia, which you can tell since it's all instrumental.
It's all instrumental. It's a classical thing, but that was remade with jazz, which really worked.
Right.
And it's a very fun piece. I really enjoy this. I think this is one of the better ones.
Yeah, it's extreme, has a lot of energy, a lot of colors, it's very fast paced, it's very intense. You see this poor bumblebee trying to escape from the music, which is trying to kill him. But it definitely keeps your attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think this probably should have started off the film. If you want to start off with a bang, just have this.
Mhm. But no.
But yeah, it was a nice segment. Then we have the Legend of Johnny Appleseed. Basically, it's the story of Johnny Appleseed, and this is actually like a story. It's not really a song, and so I kept having Make Mine Music flashbacks.
Definitely. Yeah. This is one of my favorite ones, actually, because it's one of those, American tall tales about a real life person. Because Johnny Appleseed is a real person. His real name is John Chapman, and he was a pioneer that roamed across, Western America planting apple trees. And
Although the cartoon is a bit exaggerated, I mean, it starts off simple enough. He's working he works on like an apple tree farm, and he's just like, all he knows is making apples. And then a caravan goes by, and he's just like, this is the time where there was like a big push westward for the pioneers and everything. And you see him like he wants to be a pioneer. And then it gets acid trippy. He sees the ghost of one of his ancestors, I guess it is.
well, it's an angel.
an angel.
Yeah, his own personal angel, which looks like a old pioneer with a wicked mustache.
And so he's just like, you have a good life here. You have like apples, and he sings a song about all the apples and stuff he can make, apple fritters and apple pies and apple whatever.
Yeah, he basically gives him the initiative, saying that, hey, why don't you go west anyway? I mean, sure, you're small and puny and probably wouldn't last a day, but hey, I'm going to give you the only tools you'll need, and here they are: a bag of apple seeds, a
And
Bible, and
in a pot.
a pan, because that has a handle.
People can see. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, a pan to wear on his head, both as a hat and to cook stuff in. Because apparently that's all you need to survive in the wilderness. So the angel sends him on his way, just randomly. He doesn't pack any food, doesn't take any money, nothing like that. Just those 3 things that he gave him, and just heads off into the woods.
And I really don't know how much good a Bible is going to do him unless he burns it for kindling or something.
Yes, they're going to show something that's sacrilegious on a Disney cartoon.
They approved Night on Bald Mountain.
That wasn't really sacrilegious, though. They were just showing the devil.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so he walks off and he starts planting apple trees, and some animals come and observe him planting, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And a skunk walks up to him, and he starts petting it.
It's Flower! Yeah, because the animals, understandably, are weary of his presence, because, man in forest equals death, as Bambi has taught us.
Yeah.
But, no, Johnny's a good guy. He's just planting apple trees. And he somehow manages to gain the power of a Disney princess, in which he can communicate with the animals. Well, at least, make them not fear him. And so he now has a following of animal critters
That help him plant apple trees, and in just like a bunch of years, there are apple trees everywhere, and you see they're pink apparently.
Mhm. Well, it's like with cherry blossom trees, in which they turn pink. So it's what they do when they bloom.
Oh, it's true. Okay. But yeah, so there's hundreds of apple trees everywhere, and then you see him interacting with this family that apparently appeared out of nowhere. Like there's a bunch of people living around the apple orchard now.
Well,
And I'm just like, either he is like a new Jesus and is able to make people out of nowhere, or he had a lot of free time, if you know what I mean.
I don't think these people were related to him. I think they're just, more settlers and pioneers that discovered his orchards and figured, hey, let's build our home around a reliable food source. And, they happened to hear that, hey, there's this guy going around that planted these apple trees. Let's make him our new god.
And so yeah, he gives the apple orchards to them, and they run it. And so we see him as an old man, and he goes up to heaven to the apple orchards in the sky.
That part was like kind of surprising, because they actually show him like his spirit leaving his body when he dies, and like I know they show it a lot on Looney Tunes and everything, but the way they go about it, like the angel's just like, oh, that's just your mortal husk. It's like, oh, nice thing to call your dead body.
And he's like, what am I gonna do? I want to plant more apple trees. It's like, you can do that in heaven. We need apple trees there. Why do they need apple trees in heaven?
Remember the last time they left humans in charge of an apple tree?
That did not end well.
Yeah, so point taken, right?
Yep.
So I actually really like this cartoon because, aside from, like you said, a few exaggerated things, like him as supposedly having an angel that coerced him into traveling around planting apple seeds, and, having this following of animal critters, I think a lot of it was pretty close to the story of Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, I think it was enjoyable, if anything else. I mean, it wasn't boring. It was kind of funny at times. It wasn't special, but it was still fun.
Yeah, there is two complaints about this that I always hear, particularly from the retards that you see in the comments section on YouTube. One issue is the fact that, Johnny Appleseed talks about God, the song "The Lord is Good to Me," and how he carries around a Bible and pretty much is promoting like Christianity and everything. Like, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's Disney trying to force Christianity on our kids and blah, 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 blah. But that's not true, because Johnny Appleseed was deeply religious, and he was a missionary and eventually became a priest.
And especially at that time with the big westward push, there were a lot of people like that who were spreading Christianity into the West because it was conquered territory. They were teaching the Indians Christianity.
Which leads to the next thing that people complain about is the depiction of Indians in this. Because at one point, like you said, they show a family, a group of people that are living near the apple orchards. And you see a bunch of white families, and then you see an Indian family. And a lot of people complain about this, saying, oh, they're showing the Indians with red skin, it's racist, da-da-da-da-da. But it's like, okay, how is it racist? There's no exaggerated features. Nobody's calling them, redskins. They're not doing anything that's, stereotypical of Indians.
And they did
right. In
have
fact,
somewhat reddish skin.
Right. But they actually show them getting along with the white people. Dancing with them, celebrating, sharing their food. And, I mean, they could have, gone the way of Peter Pan and, have the Indians from What Makes the Red Men Red. They could have gone that way.
Even then, I don't find that racist. But we can talk about that when we reach Peter Pan.
Right, but I just think it's unfair of them to say, that all those depictions of Indians are racist, because really they're not. I mean, not to me anyway. I mean, they're actually more stereotypically depicted in a later cartoon that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I think a lot of the things is just they have a lot of stereotypes in these package films.
Yeah, but then again,
this is not exaggerated. This is not bad. But then again, Disney okayed bears slapping each other for love and that giant. So still, this is not racist at all. I do not see any hatred towards Indians here, and I don't see the problem with it.
No, not at all. I thought this was a very well done cartoon, and very beautifully animated too, especially with the backgrounds.
It's very well drawn.
Yeah, the landscapes are beautiful, backgrounds, especially that one scene of the apple trees becoming the clouds in the sky. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And so this doesn't suffer from the animation issues that a lot of the other cartoons do. I mean, it's not bad animation for this feature. It's just simplistic. Like, it does what it has to in certain segments. It's not as bad as the animation we see in, like, Fun and Fancy Free or Reluctant Dragon or stuff like that. It's just simple.
Right, but it's still, it's not terrible, and it conveys the message.
Yeah, and it's well drawn, so.
Alright, so...
Next we have Little Toot.
Oh, this one.
This is a very interesting short. It's basically about a little tugboat who wants to be just like his father and push everything around. And so he starts helping him by pushing the rudder of the boat he's pulling. And he ends up causing an accident where a cruise boat, like a giant boat, crashes into a city. And you can only imagine the death and destruction that had to follow that.
Should we add a couple thousand to the kill count?
No, we can't do that. Because it's only implied.
True, but come on, he hurled a friggin' boat at a city. And he knocked over several buildings. You know a good amount of people had to have been killed in that.
Yeah, but I think only with the kill count, I think we have to do it if, we really see the character and it dies, because then we'd be in the thousands.
All right, fine, be picky.
Kill count is still 5.
Okay. So yeah, Little Toot is this, very mischievous, very troublemaking little thing with a human face for some reason. Ends up hurling a boat at a city, causes collateral damage, and as punishment, he's exiled from the city.
And his father has to push a garbage ship.
Yeah. I gotta say, I like the design of his father. He actually has a beard. I thought that was pretty cool. It reminded me of the Gordon Fisherman. But
And so the little Toot is exiled, and then he sees the ship caught in a storm, and so he sends out an SOS signal through the storm, and people see the smoke miles away.
somehow.
And yet it doesn't do anything because the rescue squad can't get through the storm. But this tiny little tugboat takes a gigantic ship and pulls it into the harbor.
Yeah, never mind that the fact that that the rope attached to him either would have snapped or would have torn out his back half because of the much heavier weight, and B, the fact that obviously Poseidon wants him dead because he keeps hurling wave after wave at him to the point where he does practically sink him, and somehow manages to resurface.
Physics.
Yay!
One thing to note is that the Andrews sisters provide vocals for this, and if you remember, they also did the Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet thing that I didn't like. I didn't like the song there, but this is a very good song.
Yeah, it's upbeat. It's a jaunty little tune. You could dance to it a bit, I guess.
It's kind of like a swing type song that you would hear in the clubs back then, and I can imagine people waggling their fingers to it. I think it's a good song.
Yeah, it's enjoyable, and it does what it's supposed to. I gotta say that I really didn't care for this cartoon though, because not only is it like really cartoony, like really really cartoony, like the type that you see on I kind of compare it to the cartoons done by, the people that did Casper and Richie Rich and all that. But the main character is just unlikable.
And bland.
Yeah, and bland. I mean, he's supposed to be like this, enthusiastic little tugboat that's trying to be, a big tugboat like his dad, but he causes all these problems.
And he doesn't really learn his lesson. He doesn't go through any moral dilemma or like personal conflict. He just he causes lots of death and destruction. He's exiled. He saves a boat, and then he's immediately forgiven.
Yeah, because apparently, saving a boat, fixes everything. I mean, true.
Okay. We're gonna change the kill count to 6. Just because of that incident that the tugboat caused.
Yeah, we'll sum up all the supposed deaths into one. But yeah, I didn't like it. It sends a bad message. It's the character's not endearing in the slightest, and I didn't feel bad for him when they did exile him, and he's getting tossed around by the waves and struck by lightning and everything. It's like, yeah, you deserve it, you little shit. And
you're not staying in the harbor. Why are you... Yeah, whatever. So that was a pretty bland, weird cartoon. Not weird, I take it back. It was just an okay...
Infuriating.
The next thing they have is another cartoon based on a poem. It's called Trees, and I honestly really don't remember too much about it.
From what I remember, this seems like a scene out of Bambi, pretty much.
Oh, yeah, okay. It actually was like almost lifted from Bambi. It's basically the little April shower scene.
Yeah, it pretty much it takes place in a forest. Obviously, there's animals all over the place,
And
and then
those whales are there.
yeah, yay for reused animation.
Woo!
And there's a thunderstorm. The animals are taking shelter. Lightning dancing around. It's the same exact thing pretty much. Although I will give it credit that the animation actually is a lot better in this
Yeah,
case.
the animation is really stellar. It's Bambi level, if not, it's Bambi level, and it's really good.
Yeah, in this case, they actually make the animals look realistic, not all cartoony. So
But it is still pretty boring musically.
yeah, like this wouldn't keep a kid's attention. And then for some reason at the end they added a bit of symbolism to it by having this big tree. Like they pan out, they have the sun in the background casting a shadow over it, and it's in the shape of a cross. It's like
Yeah.
okay, I'll give you credit in saying that okay, they weren't trying to force Christianity on us with Johnny Appleseed since that was part of the character. But in this case, it's just way too obvious.
It's just kind of weird. I don't think the tree segment is enjoyable, except for the animation. You can watch it just for the animation, and that'll be fine, but that's about it.
Yeah. Otherwise, just skip it if you have a short attention span.
The next segment is actually really enjoyable. It's called Blame It on the Samba, and we have Donald Duck and Jose Carioca, two of the three caballeros, meeting with the Araquan bird that we learned about in the Three Caballeros. And they're kind of in a slump, and they're walking around, and they meet the bird, and he's just like, starts sambaing, and they start dancing, and as they start dancing, they change colors, and they magically become happy.
Yeah, because apparently the samba fixes all.
But honestly, I love this cartoon. It's a lot of fun. It has really good music.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it's alright, but I wouldn't call it my favorite. Like, it seems more like a deleted scene either out of Saludos Amigos or Three Caballeros.
It still works really well, and I like the dancing.
I think that they could have easily done this with any other characters. I didn't see a reason why they had to throw, Donald and Jose in there. I mean, they don't even speak.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, if you're going to have a popular character like Donald Duck in there, have him doing the stuff that he's good at. But instead, he's just there just to dance. There's really no physical humor on his part anyway. It's, kind of disappointing in that aspect.
Mm. I mean, it's nothing super special, but it's a lot better than Little Toot and Trees.
Yeah. I mean, it'll keep your attention. It's kind of like, again, like a mini acid trip that obviously came out of Saludos Amigos, or again, Three Caballeros. So.
Mm-hmm. And then we have an intermission. We have a 10-minute introduction to the next segment where we just pan out for the longest time through this desert to a set where we have the little boy and the little girl from Song of the South. And there's a bunch of adult cowboys there, and it takes them 10 minutes, but then they finally get into the story of Pecos Bill.
Yeah, because for those of you who never heard of Pecos Bill, he's another one of those big legends from American Tall Tales. And this whole, build up to him, I really think is unnecessary.
And I kept checking my watch, and I'm just like, wait, there's 20 minutes left of the film? We haven't even gotten to the cartoon yet.
I think the big reason they created this was to give screen time to the famous Roy Roger.
Ah, Roy Rogers. How I love that drink.
Well...
No, he's a good actor. I thought he had a great screen time. But seriously, that was padding. It was padded to hell.
It was. And again, and they also had cameos from Bobby Driscoll and Luana Patton, again, those two kids from Song of the South. And I really thought that was unnecessary, because they really don't add anything other than to be the kids that the adults tells the story to.
Yeah, seriously, I don't understand why they keep appearing in these films. Well, Disney, what are you trying to do to me with these cameos that go nowhere? I'll kick a chicken.
Yeah, kick it and give it to Roy Rogers so you can make it into delicious fried chicken.
But anyway, we go to the cartoon of Pecos Bill after that intermission, and it's actually not that bad. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, I love the story of Pecos Bill, because Pecos Bill is basically a combination of, what should I call it? A combination.
He's Chuck Norris meets Paul Bunyan.
Well, I wouldn't say Paul Bunyan, but
yeah, he's a badass. He was like raised in the woods by coyotes, and so he grows up and he's like this mean like machine of a man, and he can do like anything. He can beat down the baddest predators. He can do anything. And then he meets up with his horse, and they form a bond, and you see him, like, years later, and he's, like, this badass pioneer. He goes around, he, like, carves a river in the Midwest by his bare hands. Just by being in Texas, he shrinks the size of the state.
He's somehow able to rope rainwater from California and deliver it all the way to Texas, which floods it enough to the point where he creates the Gulf of Mexico.
And he is able to rope a tornado.
Yeah, you gotta admit that's badass. Like, I guess my best comparison, think of him as like the weird offspring from Chuck Norris and Jesus. Seriously, they show him shooting himself over water. Oh yeah,
and his guns have infinite ammo.
Yes, I mean, you thought games like Left 4 Dead had infinite ammo. No, this guy can create bullets out of nothing.
And he can use his guns as a jetpack. He uses it to hover over the ground and fly. Yeah. I love this guy.
I know, he is amazing. This is probably how George Bush imagined himself.
And so, like, I really enjoyed this part of the cartoon up until, like, he meets up with a woman and they fall in love and the horse gets jealous.
Yeah, as we all know, women ruin everything.
So after she puts on this really weird dress attachment, which is like a metal thing to make their butts stand out.
It's called a bustle.
Yeah.
It's about... Well, it's about the equivalent of a bra for women. You know, it's supposed to make their boobs more perky. In this case, it's supposed to make their butts stick out more. So,
but she wears that, and she goes on this bucking bronco with the metal attachment. And because of the metal thing, she gets launched off the horse into the air. And when she comes down, she bounces because of the metal attachment, because of this bustle, whatever it is, and she bounces higher and higher. And so Pecosville, he takes his sweet-ass time, takes his rope out, and he tries to lasso her, but the horse stops him by stepping on the rope. And he doesn't try to rope her again. She just keeps going and going into outer space, where she slowly dies of asphyxiation. Kill count 7.
Yep. Ding. Yeah, that part, because, I mean, I like Slewfoot Sue. I mean, at this point in time, she really is a woman ahead of her time, and that she's as good a cowboy as Pecos Bill is. I mean,
and she showed it. She showed she can do pretty much anything he can do.
Yeah, her entrance, she comes in riding a giant catfish, which somehow is able to flip...
Symbolism!
Yeah, so she was a badass character, and it makes sense, you know, why Bill fell in love with her and why they would make a perfect couple. And what was it? One of her conditions, what led up to that incident, was that she would only marry Bill if A, he would get her a bustle, and B, if he would let her ride his horse Winamaker, who would not allow anyone else to ride him except for Bill. And she for the most part, she does a really good job of it. She's able to stay on, even when the horse is flipping around, shaking her about, and everything.
Yeah, he does like 3 front flips.
Yeah, it's only when the bustle starts acting up that she, gets screwed over, and then ends up dying as a result.
And so, I really enjoy this cartoon despite the ending. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was badass. Pecos Bill itself is really good, but the build up to it, the intermission really gets on you. Like, once I got to the cartoon, I was kind of a little bit tired. I'm just like, when is the cartoon gonna start? And then it started, and I was happy.
Yeah.
But
actually, a lot of the times when I see this cartoon played, they always skip past that part, and they go straight to the map that Roy Rogers draws for the kids to show how big Texas was back in that day, supposedly.
yeah, Texas was everywhere.
Yeah, it was even had a separate extremity right under Florida. Yay, phallic symbol.
Yay. Overall, I'd say this is actually a pretty good film. Um, 4 of the 7 cartoons work, I would say. Bumble Boogie, The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, Blame It on the Samba, and Pecos Bill. Once Upon a Winter Time is good, it's just not my cup of tea. And the other 2 are just, yeah. But really, it never steps into the really offensive territory, and it does not do it doesn't do the horrible things that Fun and Fancy Free does.
Well, I would say Pecos Bill does border on that, because like I mentioned earlier, that whole stereotype about Indians, they show Indians in the Pecos Bill cartoon, and in this one, they're pretty much just slathering each other in paint. And
they're only in there for a second, though. And
yeah, but they they give them the name rednecks, and they show the guy just shooting at them just, to fuck with them. And apparently because they were so scared, they jump out of their paint, which lands on the mountains terrain, thus calling it the painted desert. So,
really, it's not like horribly offensive. If anything, it's a throwaway joke. It was a mistake. It was the way people looked at it back then.
Yeah.
But honestly, Fun and Fancy Free is much worse.
True.
Now, in terms of package films, we've only had 3 of the 6 that actually work. We've had Fantasia, which is a masterpiece. We've had The Three Caballeros, which had an actual really good story. And we've had Melody Time, which doesn't really have anything connecting it, but they're just random cartoons, and it's marketed as such, a bunch of cartoons. And for the most part, they do tend to work together.
Yeah, they all have music in it, and, that is basically the theme. Melody Time is music time, basically. And I think it does keep with the theme for the most part. And, the cartoons, for the most part, are enjoyable. They can stand alone on their own. And some of them are, like, artistically, like...
Very, very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very artistically appealing. So, I definitely would rate this a lot more than Make Mine Music.
Yeah, in terms of the 1940s, I'm already starting to rate like my best and worst. Guys, still tell us what you think the best and the worst of the era is. We want to know your thoughts. But right now, I'm thinking best would be Fantasia, worst would be Reluctant Dragon, second worst would definitely be Fun and Fancy Free, closely followed by Make Mine Music. And, Victory Through Air Power, I said, wasn't as good as Make Mine Music, but that's because the second half is boring. Make Mine Music has a segment that's almost as irritating as the Reluctant Dragon was. That's kind of why I'm rating that way.
I agree. Like my list is almost the same, pretty much. But the package films, I guess the best way just to look at them is as individual pieces. Because you're always going to have the ones that are, going to hold up on their own, and the others that are just going to fade into obscurity. So, if I were, fans just getting into the Disney fandom, I would probably just look at all these on their own and make your own judgments. Just ignore the package stuff, because some of it is infuriating, particularly Fun and Fancy Free.
Yeah, so overall for today's subjects, Fun and Fancy Free, do not watch it. It is not worth your time. Search for Mickey and the Beanstalk, the alternate version. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Just search up the cartoon. It's so much better.
It is.
For Melody Time, I would actually search out the film, because other than the Pecos Bill segment, which you can fast forward through, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's what Make My Music should have been. Again, minus the intermission. But the cartoons are a lot better. The music is more enjoyable. The art is better. It definitely is worth a look at.
Yeah, so contestants for today, do not watch Fun and Fancy Free, but watch Melody Time. And this has been the Disney debate for today. If you have any comments, if you have any comments, criticisms, suggestions, or Disney movie suggestions that we haven't heard of at all, please let us know in the comments thread at zenithwillrule.blip.tv, or you can follow us at twitter.com/zenithwillrule or twitter.com/FMTRabbit, or you can follow us at facebook.com/zenithwillrule and facebook.com/catmac. And, friend us and talk with us and tell us how you feel about the series. Next time, we're going to be talking about a movie called So Dear to My Heart. I have never heard of this outside of, when I researched it. And it looks to be somewhat in the vein of Song of the South, but I don't know really anything about it.
Yeah, I remember hearing the title at some point, seeing it on a list of, supposed classics. But like you, I've never actually seen it, and I never heard anything about it. So I guess both of us are in for a surprise with this one.
Hopefully it's not as bad as Fun and Fancy Free was, or I will kick a chicken.
Leave the chickens alone.
No, okay. But anyway, this has been the Disney Debate. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Zenith Rule.
And I am Kat Mac /CatTCritic/FMTRabbit.
And we will see you next time.
Thank you for watching the Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on the Media Meltdown.